Hello and welcome to the BCU Alumni podcast. I'm Bethan from BCU's Alumni team, and in each episode we welcome a different member of our alumni community back onto campus to chat all about what they've been up to since they graduated from BCU. Today we're joined by Emma Gibb. Emma graduated with a degree in adult nursing in 2020 before she secured her role as a nurse in the British Army, where she provides diverse primary healthcare services to military personnel and their families. Recently, Emma took part in the world's toughest row. She was part of Team Force Atlantic, who became the first all-female British Army team to row the Atlantic Ocean. The world's toughest row is an annual international event, starting from Gomera in the Canary Islands and finishing 3,000 miles west in Antigua. It's an unsupported crossing and all crews are to take everything required for the voyage. In this episode, we'll be discussing Emma's journey across the Atlantic and her role in the British Army. Emma, welcome to the BCU Alumni podcast. So, firstly, what's it like to be back on dry land? You haven't been back for long. And how long were you actually out at sea?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is my first podcast, hopefully one of a few coming up. And yeah, I came back to the UK on Friday the 7th of this month. So, and then I had about 10 days after we got onto land in sunny Antigua to kind of have some downtime, drink some rum punch and just get used to being on land again. So it's been it's been pretty good being back, to be fair. I'm not enjoying the weather. Here in the UK, but that's fine. It's heading into spring, so looking forward to that.
So tell me about the world's toughest row then. How did the opportunity come about to actually take part in the first place?
So this is the first time I've heard of World Toughest Row. Obviously, it's an external organisation to the Army. As you said, they run it annually. They do the Atlantic and the Pacific. So I first heard about it when I saw on Instagram a little kind of a poster came out and it said something like 4 women, 1 boat, 1 ocean, or 4 soldiers, one boat, 1 ocean. And then underneath it said no previous rowing experience required. So I was like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. Let's apply. And the whole process then started from that. And that's the first time I came across World's Toughest Row. So yeah.
So you and your colleagues became the first all-female British Army team to row the Atlantic. So when did you start training then? Because I feel like it was a long time ago. And also kind of like what went into the training? I mean, like how does one prepare to row an ocean if you've never done it before?
Yeah. My thoughts exactly when I when I applied for this thing. So I think Imi, our skipper, she started this process, I reckon about 3 years ago, I think it was, and then she started planning. We went through like a campaign, so a recruitment process within the Army. Okay. Hence when I saw the poster. So we got together. I first met all the girls back in 2021, I think it was. We all met in Anglesey. That was the kind of the next step of selection. There was a whole load of other selection process to get to that point. And then from then she narrowed the team down. So from like 100 and plus women that applied, she narrowed it down to 20. From that 20 then became 8. From 8 became the final 4, obviously Imi being the skipper. What involves with an ocean row? Well, meeting your team for start, finding out who you want as your team, and obviously Imi was delegated and along with her team to find the final 4. We had so much input. So we have a team we have the rowers, but also our support team, and that consists of our team manager, Alicia. We've got Nix, Georgia, Kate, and Emily. So they were all part of like our team to help us get and accomplish this campaign. Yeah. So things included strength and conditioning training. We had Ali, who's our nutritionist, so a lot of nutritional input from the get-go. Emily's kind of organised our water-based training once we got the boat, because we haven't always had the boat. The boat got handed down from a previous team. Okay. And we had a lot of input from previous rowers within the Army. So Force Atlantic 2021, they obviously handed us the boat, and then we got a lot of input from them, and also Saifali's team who did the Pacific. So again, a lot of knowledge, a lot of stuff they could hand down to us, because none of us had done this before. And on top of that, we also had psychology input as well from Pippa Grange. So many different things. I've probably actually forgotten something in that. But as you can imagine, ocean, lots of different components, but the main thing is about getting to know the people you're going to be spending, your time with on a boat, secluded in the middle of the ocean.
Because I mean, how long actually was it?
So our duration it took to cross was 46 days and 55 minutes.
Right, so you've got to really get on with the people around you.
Well, but you can't, right? Not always. That's impossible, I would say. I mean, I don't know, but there were times, highs and lows, absolutely. I think the main thing was that you cared for one another.
Yeah.
And you remember that actually, you're going to have bad times. You're going to see the ugly side of yourself and other people. And you've just got to accept everyone for who they are, because at the end of the day, you're going to get to the end.
Yeah.
And just look after one another and show kindness. And that was key.
So tell me about the boat itself then. Like, I'm trying to envision it. So where did you sleep?
So I'll show you photos, because it doesn't do it justice. And even when you're looking at photos, you're like, how does this work? So I better get this right. So it's 8.5 meters long, roughly, and probably about the kind of width of my span here.
Yeah.
So it's not very big. So you have 2 cabins, so one at either end. I'm 5'2". I'm quite a petite person.
Yeah.
So for me, my cabin I had a little bit of space, which is, I say a little bit, a lot of space. And then in the other cabin, which was where you had navigation, electronics and things like that, it was a little bit more snug, I'd say.
Yeah.
So we would take it in turns. One would be on shift rowing, and then the other person would be in the cabin getting rest. And that's how it would work. And then if there was any times where, say, we'd have to para anchor and stop because the weather would be too bad, which we didn't have to do, you might look at both of you getting in the cabin, and at that point, it's going to be quite snug.
Okay, so how many people are kind of like on deck at the same time then?
So on deck rowing, you normally have 2, because we'd have 2 hours on and 2 hours off.
Right.
But again, that would change if someone was feeling really poorly or needed a bit of extra rest. Or me, I suffered in the sun, and I would constantly need time just to get in the cabin, have some shade, come back out and get on the oars. So we weren't really strict with it. You have to look after one another. But it would be, you'd have 2 people on deck. You can go into 3. So at the end of our row, we had to put 3 people on because the weather was so bad and you're fighting against the current. And again, out in the ocean, if the weather is good and you've got good speed with you, you might want to put 3 people on.
Okay.
So as you can imagine, space is quite limited on deck. Not a lot of movement of if you're not on the oars as such.
Did you find yourself going a bit stir crazy?
On our Instagram, there's actually a video I put on about my hallucinations that I had.
Wow.
I would. I think at one point I imagined Sherry, who was my partner on deck when we would row. I imagined her as like she was like a Tesco bag or something. Very odd. Don't know why. And I would just try and touch the bag, and I'm like, Emma, what are you doing? Like, what is? But so bizarre. And we'd constantly be waking up like an hour before our shift. So I'd always get the call 15 minutes before, Emma, you're on deck. But I'd wake up like an hour before, pack away my kit, get ready to go, and I'll get the call from Bex like, Emma, you've still got an hour's rest. So
right.
Really strange how your body just kind of adjusts to this sort of new normal as such.
Yeah.
Really strange.
So tell me about what it was actually like at sea then, in that kind of like open ocean. It's funny because whilst you were rowing across the Atlantic, I was on a cruise in the Atlantic. Slightly different. And I did find on the sea days that it's really weird because you're like, wow, I'm just open. I can't see anything for miles. And I did think about you thinking, how are they doing this in a much, much smaller boat? Like, what is it actually like at sea?
Yeah. Well, it's similar, isn't it? Like, you don't see land. It's a bit strange. You're like, oh my gosh, there's nothing around. It's just this boat or ship in the middle of the ocean. And I can imagine you probably don't feel the waves as much in the big boat. Maybe a little bit. But for the first time, that's the first time I've lost sight of land in the boat. When we do our training rows back in the UK, we always had sight of land. So to lose sight of land, it was okay. I was expecting it to feel a bit more kind of overwhelming, but it was actually all right. And when you're out there, Becca put it in a great way. She sort of said every time the weather hit us in bad weather, we just leveled up every time because you've sort of got no choice. You've got to go through it, because you can't go back and you can't get off. So, to the end we go. But just incredible, just seeing those sunrises, seeing the sunsets. We weren't fortunate enough to see a lot of wildlife, but we saw some things, absolutely. And just to be the only boat and not see anything. Yeah. You think it would be scary, and it might have been for some of the girls, but I just felt very calm, relaxed when seas were nice and it was nice and calm, but just very, I don't know, just very at ease, just enjoying that moment. I think in life nowadays, especially, we're always constantly thinking, what's the next thing? What am I doing? What am I being busy with? Yeah. When actually everything was narrowed down as you row, you look after yourself, you look after your teammates, and you get through bad weather. And if anything, bad happens, you work through it. So it was at times scary, at times amazing. All the emotions. Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
How bad did the weather get?
So I don't know how much you kind of read into it and looked at the other crews, but obviously we got told from Atlantic Campaigns that this was probably one of the years for really bad weather. Wow. Hence why our end dates were all kind of delayed a little bit. I say a little bit. We were heading off 40 days, so it got pushed back quite a bit with the weather. So we encountered, bad weather at times, absolutely. At the beginning of the race, we had really high seas, high waves, to the point where the size of a house, no joke. Wow. Scary, but also exciting, riding, surfing
just
waves.
The thought of it really freaked me out.
Yeah. But when you're there in the moment, you're just riding these waves, and it is pretty cool. Yeah. So we did have bad weather at times. You'd get soaked, but again, the temperature, you'd warm up, and you just go again. But some teams did experience it worse than us. If you're in a pair, obviously you're not as a four, you might experience it a lot more tough, even as a solo as well. So everyone's experience on that row for 2024 was completely different. Yeah. But we were all going through similar experiences in that we were all encountering different weathers at different times. So, yeah.
So when you weren't rowing or sleeping, what were you actually doing?
So eating. Or trying to eat. That was one of my big challenges. I really struggled to eat on that row. Right. I would demolish my snack packs to the point where the girls were like, Emma, be careful, you're going into the next day's snack pack before I should do. Yeah. Because the freeze-dry rations, my stomach really struggled with them. Right. So if you weren't eating, if you weren't sleeping, we had our skipper, Imi, gave us messages from families and friends on Christmas Day.
That's nice.
So just kind of having those in the cabin, always reflecting, looking at those, just gives you that extra motivation. Yeah. And what else are we doing? Obviously cleaning, you have to check your skin, go to the toilet, all the basic things you need to do. Yeah. And also just kind of checking in with your teammates and having a bit of chat. If we got signal, so we did get Wi-Fi on what's called a BGAN, but it was quite intermittent. And again, it would need set up while you're on break. So everything required a little bit of effort and just time, and sometimes that takes away from your rest time. Yeah. So you had to be quite organized, let's say, when you wanted to check your phone, and you couldn't get things like Instagram and stuff. It would just be WhatsApp and messages, videos, really difficult to download. So I got a lot of voice notes from friends, family, and which was really, really key.
That's good. So I guess then, what was it like to complete the row as a whole? And also, were you able to spend any proper time in Antigua afterwards? Were you able to kind of enjoy what you'd just achieved?
I think to complete the row, and we always said as a campaign, and this was one of the reasons I didn't mention earlier about why I was attracted to it. It's because of the campaign's bigger why. So our values of promote, inspire, belong. We wanted this to have a lasting impact, a legacy as such. Not just, okay, our row ends and that's it. We want to try and inspire, new generation, our current generation, old generations. So that's what it's about. And this row was only one part of that. And to have such a big campaign, when we finished at the end, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe, we've just done what we've done. Yeah. But also our work doesn't end there. We've got our engagement tour, we go into schools, and I think that's where you have the impact, right? Because sometimes, as our charity, the Girls Network, say, you can't be what you can't see. So by just achieving this and doing this row, yes, it was 4 of us, but actually when you look at the grand scheme of who was involved with this, who made it happen, and all the girls that didn't get selected for this, but started this journey with us, like that's the bigger impact. And when we got off land, you know, you really did have time to think about that and the bigger why of why we did this, you know.
Yeah.
But on the other question you said about Antigua, yes, I did enjoy Antigua very much. First time on the island, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. And just eating my first meal, like all the things you've been missing, and the things you really sort of you took for granted, and it makes you realise those things as well. So spending it with friends and family off the boat, and the other teammates, their family and friends, was just the icing on the cake for the end of our row.
So also then, what kind of impact did the row have on you both mentally and physically?
So I think you never know how you're going to be until you carry out something you've never done before. So you never know what you're going to be like, how you're going to react in these situations. It's the unknown, isn't it? I think physically, we always knew this was going to be a challenge. Obviously, we had our strength and conditioning training, prep for this. I'd like to think we are fairly fit women, you know, serving in the military as well. We're not athletes. We're not. Yeah. We like to keep fit and healthy. And we all brought something different to the table in terms of our fitness. And, you know, being injury free as well. All those good things kind of fed into it. And also being just generally healthy was super important. So the impact on us physically, absolutely, you know, I can't speak for the girls, but I was exhausted. Yeah. I was tired. I was losing calories, you know, because, you know, you're out, your body's undergoing this huge, grueling task for 46 days. So it's going to have an impact on you. But I think mentally, and I think that's the biggest thing, I always get asked, like, oh, how is the training for this, the physical training, when actually I think a lot of it is psychological, a lot of it's mental, emotional, and just remembering your why you're on that boat. Like, you're there as a team, like you want to get through this, but also you want to look after your teammates and make sure everyone has as good a crossing as we can. And that's the biggest part, like the motivation, the drive, the want to get to the end, to succeed. And we've all got our whys, you know. Yes, we have our overall campaign, but we've all got our individual reasons for being on that boat. So, you know, physical, mental, emotional, like all of it just took its toll. But I think, I spoke to another rower. Sorry, I'm ranting now. I spoke to another rower in Gomera, and he said, this is what I wanted. I wanted all of this, everything, like all the ups, all the downs. And he's right. He said it in a nutshell, and that's what it gave us. And to show that it's not about being the strongest team physically. You need it all. You need everything. Yeah. You know? Sorry, long-winded there. Apologies.
No, there's obviously a lot to say about it. I mean, you haven't been back long. Obviously, I haven't been back long either. So yeah. True. So you are also a nurse in the British Army. So can you tell me about, I guess, how you secured your role in the Army in the first place?
Oh man, that's I think it's coming up to like 11 years, because I joined on February 24th. So we'll be in our 11-year point now. So what was I, 20? I think, oh my gosh, maths, 23 when I joined. So a little bit later than, you know, some people who join at 16, you know, that age. Always it goes back to cadets and stuff, and just really wanting that as probably a career. And then looked at joining as a medic. They call combat medics. Realised that actually I probably want a different sort of skill set potentially. Saw the opening for nurse, and you can apply to do your nursing. Applied for that through the Army. Was successful second time round, thankfully. And then we studied here at BCU. They have a military contract. Did it here at Mary Seacole with RAF and Navy. So we were a tri-service cohort, which was great. And had my 3 years here. And then afterwards, you then get posted to what is a joint hospital group. You go to a hospital, which I went to here. So Birmingham, Queen Elizabeth. Did my 3 years there in the hospital. Met a great bunch of people while I was there. Lots of memories. And then moved on to my next posting, which is currently now in Tidworth in primary healthcare. So big step away from a hospital secondary healthcare setting. So
I guess, what does your everyday role involve?
So obviously my chain of command were super supportive of me with this row. So my every day has been quite different because my focus has been on the row. And so now getting back to normal jogging, obviously being in primary healthcare setting, you kind of work the typical Monday to Friday. The primary healthcare centre is like next to the big camp on Tidworth, so you're obviously treating soldiers and their families as well, which is great. We also see children, which is also really good. And then you have a range of clinics you can do, so kind of your normal nursing clinics. You have a duty nurse triage as well, so you get to work with other members of the MDT, which is great. And then you also have a duty nurse clinic, which again you can kind of see urgent patients coming through the door. So there's a wide variety you can do in primary healthcare, and I think there's still quite a lot of elements that I don't know. But it's so broad. Everything from like just the basic assessments, musculoskeletal injuries, we get a lot of those in the military. Things like sexual health, men's health, just such a broad variety. So it's really interesting.
So what advice would you give to anyone keen to work in the army as well?
Everyone's different and everyone brings something to the table. I honestly believe that. I think if you were to consider joining the army, you've got to be a person that wants to take, like, not all the opportunities, but look for the opportunities, be fit, be healthy, be keen. You might have a short career. Some people have it short as 4 years and then say, actually, that's my time done. Some people go in for the extended, 22, 24 years, have a full career, which is incredible. But if you want to progress, if you want to meet, other people that you can just pick up the phone and be like, hey, I want to do this. And you want to be part of something that you can do crazy stuff like I've just done, then why not? Like, at the end of the day, what have you got to lose? Apply. The worst thing can be is that they say no. But there's so much opportunity in the army, in the military in general, and I wouldn't change it.
So this is something we love to do in every episode, a Birmingham quick fire round.
Love it.
So what is your favourite spot on the BCU campus?
My favourite spot is the social kitchen in Mary Seacole.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a good spot,
Yeah.
Okay, would you rather go to Snobs or Pop World?
Oh, Pop World.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Well, I've never been to Snobs, so I was like, I can't say Snobs.
You've never been to Snobs?
I've never been to Snobs. The queues are so long. I remember queuing up and I was like, I don't want to go here. Let's go Pop World.
Oh, fair enough.
90s, that's all Pop World.
Yeah, cheesy pop.
Yeah.
Okay, Blues or Villa?
Oh, my best mate is a Villa fan, so I've got to say Villa.
Okay.
I've got to say Villa.
Okay, would you rather go to Broad Street or Digbeth?
Digbeth.
Nice. What is your favourite Brummie landmark?
So I really like Aussie, the mechanical bull.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a typical old, area. I love the canals, but the bull, it's from the Commonwealth when we first saw him in the stadium to now in the train station.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And what is your favourite Brummie word?
So again, this goes back to my best mate. My favourite word is bab.
It's got to be bab.
It's got to be.
It's a classic.
Every time.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's saying it again. She's saying bab. I love it. Absolutely love it.
So what are your highlights since graduating from BCU then?
So, obviously one of the highlights, the row, absolutely. This has been probably one of the best things I've done for my friends and family as well. Just them not being a complete part of it, but having some input into it.
Yeah.
Because of that, it's been incredible. There's so many things. Moving to my primary healthcare unit in Tidworth, that has been incredible. The team are amazing. To get that opportunity to come and work with a really great team has just been, I couldn't have asked for more. Being part of RCDM as well, meeting all the people there, just getting the opportunities and the opportunities that the Army offer. I've done my All Arms physical training instructor course. They've supported me to do that, which is great. So many different things, and I can't pinpoint. It's probably so many more, and I can't really remember. But I think for me, the biggest thing is the people I've come across. The junior NCOs I've come across are just absolutely just great people, and that's what makes it. And again, going back to the Army, if you want to be with people that are like-minded like yourself, then it's a great place to be. And I've made friends for a lifetime. So yeah.
And final question then, if you could go back to your very first day here at BCU, what one piece of advice would you give yourself?
Oh gosh, this was a tough question because I found nursing, the nursing school or whatever you want to call it, nursing study. I found it really tough, like really more challenging than my first degree that I did, just because it took so much from you. It required so much more of you, like physically, mentally, emotionally. But I think the best bit of advice I would say is just, I heard a quote recently, it's all about progress over perfection. And I think you've got to remind yourself of that. Like, you will make progress. Like, it's not about being perfect. I know we get scared about, things, the NMC and, making mistakes and things like that. But you just got to remind yourself, just follow your code and do the right thing and just be brave and don't worry and just take your time because it will come, and just give yourself a break, because I don't think I gave myself a break, and just look after yourself. Health is so important. Look after yourself, and then you can look after your patients. And be kind. As always, as nurses, be kind.
Emma, thank you so much for coming on to the BCU Alumni podcast today. It's been so inspiring to learn more about your journey so far, and we obviously can't wait to see you again very soon. And again, thank you for listening. You can check out more episodes of the BCU Alumni podcast on our YouTube channel. Thank you, and we'll see you again very soon.